Okay, so I'm making another Big Brother Watch broadcast. Is mainly to advertise for tomorrow, to let people know about tomorrow TI meeting, which is going to be between 6 and 8 p.m. Between 6 and 8 p.m. at Intercafe at Friends Meeting House in front of Euston Station in London. So everyone is welcome to join us, target individual, and also political activists who may feel that themselves being targeted in different ways, and whistleblower and everyone, because about targeting, I think we had meeting before, and we had meeting before a few months ago. They were quite well attended. Some meeting we had up to 25 people. Then we stopped. We, as in Leeds, London, and Stoking, we stopped. And but I think I think it's important. It's not necessarily easy, or easy as it may sound, to organize this meeting for a number of reasons I'm not going to go into at the moment. But it's not necessarily super easy to get this meeting going, etc. But I think it seems somewhat perverse that in this country, in London, I'm sure there is scores of individuals being targeted, being persecuted, being victimized. And it seems somewhat perverse that there is no face-to-face meeting, which is basically the basic thing you want to do, and then you may use that to uh, you may start to think about doing other things like protests outside the House of Parliament or in front of the BBC or different things. But the main thing is the starting point in getting people to meet up face to face. It's not an easy thing to do. Anyway, I don't know if I gave you already the information. The information is between tomorrow between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. Intercafe, a friend meeting house in front of Euston Station in London. It's not easy because what we have is we have any number of people being victimized in ways which are quite different. So you have possibly people with just involved. You have target individuals. They get a certain type of victimization, and then you have political activists, and then they get targeted and victimized too. I mean, I was reading recently an article written by some political activist in I think it was in Wales. I think it was in Bristol. And it sounded exactly like, he was saying things like being done to him. It was sounding exactly like a target individual. So there is maybe a degree of overlapping and in the targeting, but there are also vast differences. So you get the stuff being inflicted on target individuals, then you get the stuff being inflicted on political activists, then you get the stuff being inflicted on whistleblowers, and it's quite vastly. It can be a lot of overlapping. That's the important thing, but there is also be a lot of people may have different experiences. So yeah, I try to I try. These meetings are open to everyone. So I mean, if you're a political activist, if you feel you are being victimized, if you are a whistleblower, you feel you are being victimized, as likely to be happening. So, but also you speak also to ordinary, you speak to ordinary political activists and everyone has some story to tell, like about strange things happening to them. They're not entirely sure if this was a coincidence or if it happened by design. But it can become difficult when there is a bit of people coming from different backgrounds, from different experiences. As usually, what happened, like you there's certain thing happening to you, and that is your reality. And then if someone come up with something slightly different, you immediately, oh, I don't recognize that. That's different from me. And then that's maybe a bit of a clash there, of mistrust. So I mean, it's not easy. It's not easy to try to get people, but at the same time, like it's quite important because we have a lot of things happening at the moment. We have the Yellow Vest movement, and that's why I'm wearing a yellow vest at the moment, because I think that's part of a big struggle for the future of humanity. If we want to have a future. Obviously anyone can decide to wear a yellow vest. That there's probably some people decide to identify themselves with the movement, which are not depending on the point of view. But I mean, people think they're not terribly nice people or something. So I mean, but I'm not trying to identify with a specific a specific group of people, or just like try to identify with this. I think this big struggle taking part just now for the future of humanity, where on one side you have what I call the terror financial banking cartel, which is basically they're destroying the planet. Their machination of destroying the planet, of destroying humanity. And then you have the ordinary people, which finally they're starting to have enough. I mean, and that's you see in different countries. Sometimes this dissatisfaction, this frustration is expressing itself in forms which are not entirely coherent or something. So I mean, there is also, as you would expect after centuries of misinformation, disinformation, repression, blackmail, targeting, victimization of dissent, stuff. So you get an expression which are probably not entirely clear in their aims, in their ideology. But sometimes you see the beginning of the frustration of people feel started getting expressed in try to find a positive expression for their frustration. It's not always successful, particularly at the beginning. But the reason I wear a yellow vest now is that I identify not with the different strands of the movement, but more like this feeling that there is really a fight going on at the moment for the future of humanity, between what I call the terror financial banking cartel, which is basically trying to enslave everyone, and the rest of us, the 99% plus. So anyway, going back to the meeting, everyone is welcome. There is, you can have just a purely TI meeting, and then everyone will talk about, electronic harassment and organized stalking, or we can have an open meeting like I try to have it, and we can get political activist, whistleblower. If you can get the ear of these people, like to get them to listen to us, it's probably a lot more productive and useful than just to be just just a handful of target individuals at the time talking about electronic harassment and organized stalking, because there is scores of people being victimized, in London, in this country, in other European countries, the United States, in different ways. So it's not just being parochial and just get 3 or 4 target individuals together to all the time discussing about, talking about organized talking and electronic harassment, instead to widen the narrative, to widen the discourse as much as possible, to get alliances, help, support from different political activists, different whistleblowers. So that's the idea. It's not easy because then you get people that are coming from different backgrounds, and they have different understanding of what being targeted or being persecuted by the system is, and then if something bring up something slightly different, people get a bit suspicious, or there's an element of mistrust. What's that? That's not me. I never heard about that before. Or something. But so it's not easy. It's not easy. It's not an easy task to do. But I think I should try. I should try to organize some meeting and of maybe people are being victimized in different ways, because it seems quite wrong that I'm sure in this country, in London, we have scores of people who are getting victimized, and scores of people getting victimized. So it seems quite wrong that in the last few months there has not been any face-to-face meeting, or it does. Let's be honest. I think one of the reasons is because in this country, which is in many ways, I love this country, it's a wonderful country, but must be said that the establishment, the intelligence community, they particularly really good at neutralizing any form of dissent, any form of when people try to get together for change, for under different banners, and it must be said that they're really smooth and good and very efficient at suppressing any kind of with infiltration, with all different techniques, spying, infiltration, trying to create conflict between different people. So they're really good. In this country, the establishment, the intelligence community, when it comes to controlling dissent, neutralizing, fledgling movement, and from the very beginning, and kind of destroying them. We have the spy corps, and we have the infiltration, we have the agent provocateur, we have the misinformation, and disinformation, getting people, pitching up people, getting people to fight each other. So they're really good. It does may be a reason why in a way London is possibly, you may say, is the capital of maybe with a couple of other American cities is the capital of targeting. I mean, the center of this kind of activity. Then you go for months. When after I stop trying to organize meeting a few months ago, then we go for several months that there is no face-to-face meeting of target individual and activists at all, because they're so good. They're really good at neutralizing dissent, diffusing movement, diverting the attention of people, infiltration, spy corps, you name it, that they have been doing for centuries, that they become really good at it. So that's the reason. So for that reason, I think I should carry on. In spite of all the difficulties, try to organize this meeting, hopefully weekly. So I hope tomorrow there is going to be a lot of people there, and we talk about different things, and people show some tolerance. If somebody come up and say that they like being targeted or victimized in some way that I can recognize, because there is different ways. People are getting victimized, you get victimized in many different ways. You get the homeless, you get the victim of the universal credit benefit change, where that they've been literally pushing into the streets, made homeless. There's the people in psychiatric hospital, in ordinary hospitals. being used as guinea pig to test all kind of poisonous medication. There is your doctor, which probably get a lot of perks and financial gain by prescribing you some medication which has never been tested properly in spite of what they're telling you. And so why you have thalidomide children and all the rest of it, and the vaccine, autism, and now there's even anyway. So it's the people victimized people victimized in the military. You got tour of duty in Iraq or Afghanistan. You start to question certain thing happening there, and then you end up like that. You end up like a victim of friendly fire, like with a bullet in your back. So I mean, there's this kind of people victimized you have all the people in this country which have been deliberately pushed into debt, by cutting benefit, by freezing wages or cutting wages, by making a lot of people redundant, and then they force loans on you, and then they all the students' loans. So I mean, so people can get victimized in is like in 100 different ways. Then you get the high-profile cases like Julian Assange. Julian Assange, a lot of the stuff that's been done to Julian is like possibly a lot of stuff targeting individuals we recognize fairly easily as being done, something which has been done to us as well. But then you need to be too caught up in this kind of cult of personality thing, because I support Julian Assange. I was already supporting Julian Assange before he took refuge in the Ecuadorian embassy in 2012. I was already long before that. I was already standing outside, Westminster Magistrate Court when there was the hearing about the extradition to Sweden and the rest of it, together with a number of other Julian supporters. So I mean, I support Julian Assange, but we don't need to get caught in this kind of thing like cult of personality thing, like where people get obsessed with free Julian Assange, because I can tell you in this city of London, there is thousands of people that are a lot worse off than Julian Assange. So we need to Julian Assange. We need to support Julian Assange, because also that is important, very important, because I think he's a very good person. He's done wonderful things for freedom of information, to making people aware of horrific corruption in our governments. And but we need also be aware that it's not just about Julian Assange, because in just in the city of London there are probably thousands of people that are a lot victimized in ways that are probably a lot more horrific than Julian Assange. Like Julian Assange has a lot of support and supporter all over the world. That there is a lot of people in this city being victimized in the most horrific way. They can find anyone to give them the time of day. So I mean, let's look at that thing because I always remember what David Cooper was a South African activist, which spent many years in London before passing away in Paris. But David Cooper wrote, if you do any kind of activism, it's quite important not to be, always start from the awareness of your own personal oppression, right? So if you do any kind of activism, the good activism, when you do your activism, from the awareness of your own personal oppression, and then you start from there, and then you may move, from there you can move to other things, supporting Julian Assange, etc., or supporting Melanie Shaw, but you always need to start from the awareness, because otherwise activism which doesn't start from the awareness of your own personal oppression then become another form of alienation. People get obsessed with some cause. It's become like a cult. There's some code which become like a cult. So It's the sane activism, need a way to start from the awareness of your own personal oppression. And then from there, if you're aware of the way you are being oppressed by the system yourself, then you can move to other things, to support different causes, to fight against war, support Julian Assange. But it's very important you become aware. It don't become like some kind of hobby or some kind of cult. That I have this code that I totally unaware of my personal feelings and my personal circumstances, or I'm totally unaware of myself in my emotional reality. But just I go all in supporting all these different causes, it then become another form of alienation. So it's quite important when you any kind of activism, you need to be aware of your own personal oppression. And from there, you can move to do many other things if you are aware of where you're coming from. Yeah. So that's for tomorrow. So it's not necessarily easy, because you may get people with different personal experiences, coming from different backgrounds. But I will invite everyone, just because it may be quite difficult, because there's no pain, no gain. So I will invite as many people as possible to come along to our another big meeting. And the last meeting we had, which was 3 weeks ago, I think 3 weeks ago. I mean, the original idea was to have a meeting the original idea is still to have a meeting every Thursday, but due to personal problems and things that I need to sort out, so I let everyone know that there was not going to be any meeting for a couple of weeks. But now, resuming, I would like very much to organize a meeting every week on every Thursday. So at the last meeting there was 6 people present, which is not too bad, considering that we didn't hold any meeting for quite some time. And I was very happy to welcome amongst us Kieran O'Reilly, which is is a well-known peace activist. Activists know him from all over the world. He was born in Australia, but it's been actually, because Kieran is part of a movement called Catholic Workers, which amongst other things, which is that they're fiercely opposed to any kind of war. And so even though Kieran activism is entirely peaceful, he quite uncompromising in his peace activism. So he basically ended up being jailed for his peace activism, non-violent peace activism, at least in 3 different countries. Right? He's in native Australia, then in the United States, which is basically then in Ireland, which is always involved into breaking into some military bases. It was just peacefully, without any violence, but for breaking into a military base in Australia, in the United States, and in Ireland. He was jailed in 3 different countries for his peace activism, uncompromising peace activism. And Kieran is also one of the leading figures of the international Free Julian Assange movement. He told a story about his growing up in Queensland, in Australia, getting to know Julian from an early age, and they were both young peace activists in Queensland, so he knows Julian very well. So he's one of the leading figures of the international Free Julian Assange movement, and at the moment he's putting his money where his mouth is. So he's actually conducting a 24/7 vigil outside the Ecuadorian embassy, together with other members of the London Catholic Workers community, together with other political activists at the time traveling far afield to spend some time there, from Germany, from the United States, from Australia, people coming along, but they want to spend a couple of days outside there, supporting Julian, etc. So basically, we get Kieran, arguably, Kieran is know everything about, how the system, persecute. Kieran is also of Irish descent, so you know everything about it, the way, about all the Aboriginal being victimized in Australia, about how the Irish have been victimized through the centuries. So he's well aware of all the crime and the perpetrated by the establishment in different countries, and but arguably his understanding his experience is possibly quite different from the experience of an ordinary target individual. So that's the thing, the difficulty in a way, to get people from different backgrounds together, try to come to the point where people begin to understand that the harassment being meted out to the activists in Bristol, and the victimization and the harassment being meted out to Kieran O'Reilly, and there's all the common commune denominator. So it's difficult, but that's what we, because there's no point getting three target individual and the dog constantly talking about. That's something important too, obviously, but not exclusively. Talking about their own experience, we need to open up and try to work on different experiences, and then through talking, to explaining, and to analyzing, people come to understand that is it's all one experience of oppression, because it's all one. Because in the West, what they call the terror financial banking elite, basically they try to enslave people in the West. And then there is I not just wanted to point the finger only at the West, meaning the country like the United States, North American country like the United States and Canada, European countries, maybe countries like New Zealand and Australia. I don't want just to point the finger, because I know there is stuff going on in China, there is stuff going on in developing countries, there is stuff possibly going on in Russia also. So there's not just I want to point the finger, but at the same time we live in the West, so you're possibly more concerned about stuff happening to us in the West, whilst we acknowledge that in other parts of the world there may be similar or slightly different other stuff going on, which is true, but we live in the West. We are focusing of what is done to people in the West, and if you look at the last few decades, you can see a pattern of different thing happening. What is the common denominator of all? I think enslavement. Enslavement. You can see. In the 60s, on both sides of the Atlantic, there was a degree of prosperity, relatively speaking, and then all the prosperity, I suppose, enjoying a certain amount of prosperity was encouraging people to ask questions about, about many things going on, and becoming quite. People wanting answers, like the Vietnam War. What is it for? Why are we sending young people to die in Vietnam? Our young people to die in Vietnam. So people started to ask questions. Possibly, what I call the terror financial banking cartel, and all the all the people supporting their system of control, which is what Clive Menzies called the elevated cattle, so the medium range supporter of the system. So they didn't like that. They didn't like the prosperity, probably. And they didn't like people starting to ask a lot of questions about the Vietnam War, about other things. So what they started to do with the beginning of the 70s, I think they knew exactly what they were doing, because they started moving a large portion of all manufacturing job on both sides of the Atlantic to Southeast Asia. I think, I think it was to say, oh, it's just that they want to make a quick buck or save some money. It's been demonstrated that to moving, yeah, okay, they were obviously availing themselves to a large market of cheap labor, but there was also a lot of extra cost in this kind of operation. So I'm inclined to think that they was not just all this operation was not just dictated by greed. I don't think I because these the kind of people, they want money, they want more money, they can print it, they can use the Bank of England, the Federal Reserve to to print any amount of money. So I don't think it's about people often they talk about oil, about the money involved in the oil market, or the money involved in the defense industry. And that's correct, because they probably like to get a bit of extra cash flow But I think the main what is really driving these people, I'm referring to all this banking family, it is what I call the terror financial international banking cartel. I think it's not so much money, because they have plenty of money. They have a way of getting more money if they want to. I mean, I think is a drive for power and for increasing control. So I think the main reason, uh, you know, they start moving on this manufacturing job to Southeast Asia. I think it was the power, control. It was all about power and control. So they just so we get a lot of people losing their jobs. Then it went on for many years, and then we get austerity. So basically, making people unemployed, cutting people welfare benefits, making people unemployed, basically forcing people into debt. I think deliberately. The people. The fact that a lot of people in the West were pushing to destitution and poverty wages and unemployment, and they start almost forcing loans on them. I don't think that happened by accident, because if you look at what was happening after the end of World War II with the IMF, you see a pattern of documented, deliberate pattern of destroying or sabotaging the economy of developing countries through various operations, speculating on the financial market, speculating on the country currency, and so if it was, you can see after the end of World War II, the IMF, all the people working with the IMF, the World Bank, they were deliberately trying to wreck the economy of many developing countries. Then they were coming along and forcing loan of them on the country. Then they were sending their people to completely take control of all the relevant policies of the country to try to buy out all the country assets for, very cheaply. So so in a way, so we have a pattern there, which has been documented. I think the same pattern. What is basically the end result, the aim of this kind of activities? At the time, it was to enslave all the to go around all to go around all these different developing countries. Many of them are just freeing themselves from the control, the colonial exploitation. It is just immediately they came back. They tried to wreck their economy and force IMF loans on them to, and then they sent their people in to dictate all the economic policies and to buy out all the best assets of the country for peanuts, basically. So what is the key word that better describe this kind of activity? Enslavement. Try to enslave this country, which just maybe just free themselves from the colonial, control, and re-enslave them immediately. Try to bring them back in a situation of complete control and enslavement. And then I think the same dynamic they start to apply the same dynamic not so much toward developing countries this time, but toward ordinary people into West, ordinary working people into West. So moving a large section of all the manufacturing jobs to Southeast Asia, then they start, cutting public services, cutting welfare, cutting benefits. Making a lot of people redundant, making changes in the welfare system, whereby making a lot of people homeless. And then coming along and offering, almost forcing people to take loans. And then you have a good example would be the student loans, which is at the moment represent an enormous amount of debt, which is never going to be paid, is part of this colossal public plus household debt, which is growing, and there is never a chance that is ever going to be repaid. So arguably, sooner or later, that will without wanting to be a prophet of doom or something, that probably obviously, we have like what we have in the United States. What we know about is that a 20 trillion plus public debt, and then the household debt is almost the same amount, if not more. So in the United Kingdom, we're talking about maybe in the region of 2 trillion plus of public debt and maybe 2 trillion plus of household debt, which, so all this stuff, it's only common sense to think at some point all this will bring to a collapse of the global economy. Without being a conspiracy theorist or a prophet of doom, if you have this kind of colossal amount of debt, which is not a chance to ever being repaid, so that's the situation basically. And but the important thing is that when talking about that, it's quite important to have a look at what was happening historically with debt, with lending money, with usury, right? Because our ancestors all over the world, in many cultures all over the world, there was a culture whereby at some point, there was the realization that a colossal amount of debt piling up within a society was extremely detrimental for the for the economy of that society, for the social life, social fabric of that society. So we are all through the history, different cultures, they had this jubilation of debt. So there was this, we like to think of our ancestors as fairly uncivilized, whilst we're supposed to be the civilized one, but they had this realization, which we have completely lost, of all the detrimental effect of debt, or the piling up of debt within a society, the detrimental effect on the economy, on the prosperity of that society, and the detrimental effect on the political and social life, fabric of that society. So if you look at history, many cultures and many societies, they have this almost institutionalized thing occurring every number of years, whereby the jubilation of death was the cancellation of any debt, which is now the thing is that when all the chicken are going to come home to roost, and this enormous amount of debt in Western economy is going to cause some big economic upheaval. The main thing is to see if that is going to be, if we can use it in a positive way to make a good reform, a change the system, or if it's going to be used again like by the bankers to increase not so much their wealth, but their political power, their control over every aspect of society. So that when this, at the next big economic crisis, which is going to happen, we had them, for every number of years, going back centuries. Every number of years there is some big economic crisis. 2008, 1929. The only question is it going to be used in a positive way for people to reappropriate the democratic process and ordinary people get some control of what goes on in their society, make some very needed political and economic reforms? Or is it going to be used by their financial banking cartel to increase the stranglehold they have on all aspects of society, to increase their power? I think, this, we see, we see many movements happening, because one important thing to need to be mentioned is that after the 2008 economic crisis, and we don't know, and no one knows. I mean, it's difficult to tell if that was engineered or it was happened spontaneously as the effect of a decade of crazy mismanagement of the economy, greedy and demented mismanagement of the economy. But some people say, oh yeah, okay, you think that may have been done deliberately, you must be a crazy conspiracy theorist. Well, we have evidence that when Lehman Brothers was in very serious trouble, the Federal Reserve was really dragging at their feet in taking action. So they were postponing and delaying and being very indecisive. And then there was the collapse of Lehman Brothers. So we don't know. So we don't know if that was the incompetence, it was malice, or what. We do know that there is plenty of studies showing that the wealth of the richest in society, which is not the 1%, it's a lot less. You say, I think I heard that in the United States there is that 8 people, the wealth of eight individuals is equivalent to the wealth of all the rest of the population, 300 plus million combined. So say, oh, yeah, it was just incompetence, people say. But what we know, through a number of different studies, is that the wealth of a very small number of people, the people at the very top in the wealth chain, you may say, is that since 2008 has trebled, so it's now threefold. It's increased threefold compared to what it was prior to 2008. So if that happened if the collapse of 2008 happened by incompetence, by accident, then it was a very fortunate accident for these people, which saw their wealth increasing in 10 years, threefold. So, so I think so. It's difficult to know what will happen with the future of humanity. I'm not over optimistic because we see progress in certain areas, and then they manage to, and then we go back to the right thing where before. So I mean, they managed to completely neutralize the Occupy movement a few years back. So there was thought they're quite good at containing and bamboozling the general population and neutralizing all movements. So we thought there was a lot of progress in. So sometimes you feel like there's one step forward and three steps backward, but we don't know. So, but there is certainly a big struggle at the moment, but between what I call the terror financial banking cartel and ordinary people, which they get squeezed and squeezed and squeezed all the time, more and more and more, in terms of the economic situation, It's difficult to know. I mean, a lot of the movement we see at the moment are quite, I think they're quite, there is an element of confusion in their aims, in their ideology. So, I mean, there's various different movements springing up all over the world. Some of them, there is an element of, they incorporate an element of ideological confusion. So it's very difficult to be over optimistic about the outcome of some of this movement. But maybe, maybe the best hope for humanity is the fact that they're squeezing people more and more and more and more. And like you see in France, and then you get all these people that they feel they have nothing left to lose, coming out in the street. And now it has been 10 weeks they've been at it, and they're still going strong. I think last weekend there is in excess of 60,000 people in the street in all over France. So maybe, paradoxically, the best hope is that they intergreed, which I don't think it's so much a greed for money or wealth, it's more a greed for political power and control. They keep pushing people, pushing the population. In this country you have universal credit. They've been, driving, I don't know how many people into homelessness. They constantly, completely ignoring the feeling of the population. They keep pushing all these new taxes and new oppressive measures and new, I don't know how many. I'm not sure, but I know every week in this country, for instance, they're closing any number of fire stations after rainfall. They're still closing any number of fire stations all over the country. They're closing any number of hospitals. I don't know the exact figure, but I know that every week they're closing down fire station and hospital, any number. I don't know how many, but every week. So I mean, and then they keep pushing people into poverty, pushing people into homelessness. So maybe paradoxically, the best hope is that in their greed for political power and control, they pushing, an increasing number of people into homelessness, an increasing number of people into abject poverty, and people may protest because of the some ideological concern, and then they go out and protest and they go home. But when people, they don't have food to put on the table to feed their kids, then it's quite different. Then they go into the street, like in France, they stay on the streets. So that's possibly the best hope for humanity. The fact that their insane greed for political power and control, they keep pushing people and keep, and using, all the stuff they do now. They would really love to get everyone DNA, to get everyone microchipped, and and to give everyone poisonous vaccines, and all the stuff they're getting up to. Anyway, I want to have a look at something. Reading, I'm going to read it out to you. Something which is I find very interesting. Is the kind of in the last 10 years, I did a lot of outreach work for target individual, going to particularly, but it's not something I do very much at the moment, to be honest. I cut down a bit on that. But for me, as I was going to a lot of protest, demonstration, political events, and leafleting about targeting. So that is the kind of event I still would very much like to attend, and maybe to bring along a few other target individual, because if only because it's a chance of meeting up with a lot of people with the same concern. So basically, it is I am on the mailing list of Big Brother Watch, which is a number of different. There's a handful of them in London now. They're concerned about civil liberties, privacy, etc. And what's going to happen is, then there is talking about DNA and stuff, and then there is facial recognition and biometrics and the rest of it. There's totally Orwellian. So it would appear that the Metropolitan Police, they are trying out this new facial recognition system. So what they do, they've been doing it before. So they choose a couple of days in the location, and then they experiment with facial recognition. There's been one recently. It was I think it was at some sporting event, Wembley Stadium, around Wembley Stadium, a few weeks ago. And now that it again. So the Metropolitan Police are doing another of their experiments, deploy live facial recognition on Thursday the 31st and on Friday the 1st of February in London. We don't know the location yet. So the location will be known in the next few days or something. What the Big Brother Watch is saying about this experiment is that this technology risks turning us all into walking ID cards. The camera can scan up to 300 faces a second. A comparing member of the public against secret police watch lists, which include a lot of totally innocent people, maybe just guilty of, I promise you, just people going once to a green protest or ecological protest that they get in this list. So, I mean, very large list, mainly including totally innocent people, law-abiding, peaceful protesters, thousands of them. They're all in this list, I promise you, believe me. Police watch list, which have been known to include innocent people, obviously, with mental health problem, a peaceful protester, and you name it. They try to, this kind of hoarding spirit where they like to hoard people DNA. They like, and they like to hoard people biometrics with, The police trial, in inverted comma, using innocent Londoners as guinea pig, and some has so far cost taxpayer well over £200,000. So Big Brother Watch is organizing a demonstration. As soon as they will know the location of this experiment, they will be organizing a demonstration in that location against its use between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. on both Thursday the 31st of January and Friday the 1st of February, handing out leaflet warning people about this authoritarian surveillance tool. So as soon as we try to get to know, because you get different kind of protest and events, but this is really one which hopefully a small number or a big number of targeted individuals may want to attend. So as soon as I find out about the location, I will try maybe to organize a TI event for the target individual if they want to come along and do some leafleting about targeting. I can provide the leaflet, or people are super welcome to make their own leaflet, expressing their own concerns, specific concerns, and then we can maybe have an interesting chat with the Big Brother Watch people. Try to explain to them hopefully in a rational way, because when TI talk about, understandably, when TI talk about their experience, they in a way manage to be entirely rational, but something which is has always been pointed out by the Eleanor White and etc. What the things she was talking about. So about the need for TI to be rational when trying to explain how what's happening to us, to other fellow political activists, etc. So it's going to be Thursday the 31st of January and Friday the 1st of January between 10 and 6 p.m. We don't need to be there all the time. We can join these people maybe, in the event I may try to organize. It may be like, joining them about 2 p.m. or something, or 3 p.m. Not to make it too heavy, and then we can either interact with members of the public and with Big Brother Watch activists. So that's so much for about, let's get back to, yes. So So basically, that's another thing I wanted to make people aware. So as soon as I know, and I will organize an event, maybe at 3 to 6 p.m. on both days, without try not to make it too heavy. Then we can go there, interact with the public, do some TI leafleting, talk with Big Brother Watch people, and try to make them aware, hopefully in a rational way, in a way that they can understand. Because you need to, when you talk with someone, you need to take into account their experience. And the truth is, if you even if you're an activist, or you are aware of some of the horrific things the deep state is getting up to, it is, you don't have the experience of a target individual. So it's quite important, to when you talk to fellow political activists in different campaigns, to try to, you need to think about them, their experience. Just vent your frustration and talk about 100 different things. You need to, you need to think what their experience is, and explain what's happening to us in a way which is that they can understand. Not to freak them out, because everything people say about the TI experience, I know about my personal experience, it's all true, more or less. Even sometimes people, they express themselves in a way which is maybe slightly unfortunate, and not making people many friends, but it's all true. I've been a target for many, many years, so I know it's all true. But if you talk with a fellow political activists, you need to express yourself in a way that they can understand, they can relate to, because there's no point freaking them out, and then they become convinced that all target individuals are crazy, So it's a good way. You can try to say to people, like, talk about it as some kind of social engineering experiment, We keep in touch with people from all over the world. We all saying the same identical thing. Thousands of people on both sides of the Atlantic, and because it tend to follow people around. Like someone in the U.S. comes to live in Europe, and vice versa. It's this kind of thing follows people around. So we incline to believe that we are dealing with a huge NATO-wide social engineering experiments. That's a good way of trying to explain to fellow political activists. Social engineering experiment aim at creating a new layer of social control and manipulation. So there are already many, there are already many ways of controlling people. You start with the judiciary, which is totally corrupt from top to bottom. I mean, the only people who think the judiciary is impartial are the people that never had any dealing with it. And until you don't have any dealing with the judicial system, you can have this quite pleasant illusion about the judicial system being impartial. As soon as you start to have any dealing with the judicial system, then you realize that it's totally corrupt. It's just what I call is the first layer of social control. So if you create problem for the establishment, for the deep state, they use the judicial system to completely screw you, right? Excuse my French. But that's the first layer of social control. And then the second layer of social control is actually the psychiatric system. Like, you can see we have a very good example, a template of what was happening, for instance, in the old Soviet Union, where they were saying, we live in such a wonderful system. If you find any fault with the system, you must be mentally ill. So if they, if they can find it to pin on people to persecute, not prosecute them, but persecute them using the judicial system, they can. I mean, that's it's saying something, because basically they since the end of World War II with Echelon and then with all these social networks, they've been collecting all our information with total abandonment. They know everything. When they tell you about something, oh yeah, the surveillance, blah 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 blah. It's just the information which is currently available about the way they're spying on us is just the tip of the big iceberg. And then you have all these Snowden files. I don't know how much they release I'm sure they contain a huge amount of explosive information. The Snowden files. And we saw from the very leader, which has been published. But I think is what has been published so far. I think it's been less than 100% of the entire file. So I'm sure there is all explosive material in the Snowden file. They probably published less than 100% of it. So that is again another story. Why they withhold all the people? They with almost a concerted effort to withhold this information from us. Why? I don't know. But but it's basically the surveillance, the way they're spying on us is so much more intrusive and sophisticated than anything you will find in mainstream media, in alternative media. So they, and then what usually happens, if you cause any problem for the establishment or the deep state, they start digging. They have all this information, they are used terabytes and terabytes of information. And then if you start causing any problem for, for the establishment, they start digging. So, they're bound to find anything, youthful indiscretions, anything, they can find something on anyone. If they can likely twist it to make it look like something different, or they can just make it up. So that's why as soon as someone like Alex Salmond joined Russia Today, And then after a couple of weeks, they come up with this allegation of sexual impropriety or something. So you can see the relation. Jeremy Corbyn posed a substantial threat to the establishment, and then since they've been desperate since become leader of the Labour Party for the first time. They've been digging and scratching the bottom of the barrel, trying to find anything they could find on Jeremy Corbyn, and so. But if even this desperate effort to scratch the bottom of the barrel, twisting around with all the terabyte of information they have on everyone, even if this fails, right, they can away make up that you are mentally ill. So, they say, and and there have been amazing stories about people what they making up stuff about things they may have done or said to make up their mental ill. It was a total fabrication. They're making stuff up completely. So second layer of social control is the psychiatric system. If they, with all the terabyte of information they have on everybody, if they can find dig anything up on you, they will try to pretend that you're mentally ill, and so they lock you up. They give you all this psychotropic medication, which is basically destroy, shrink. I mean, all the independent study have been made on this psychotropic medication is totally diabolical. The stuff they do to your brain is undescribable. So and the pharmaceutical company making this garbage, try to use a polite word, that this garbage, they're making actually profit of the the 3,000%, in the sense that to put together this chemical gobshite, it's cost them close to nothing, and then they resell it to you or to the NHS or to whoever for a huge amount of money. So they're making profit. But it's a part of the criminal racket. It's a part of the criminal racket. So the second layer of social control is a psychiatric system. If they can dig up anything on you, in spite of all the terabyte of data they have on you, they will try to make out that you are mentally ill. They will make up things. They will twist things around it, and you get a knock on the door to the doctor. They will try to section you. They try to destroy your brain using psychotropic medication. Then the third layer is actually targeting, because they know what they're doing to the planet, that they know what they're doing to humanity, they know what they're doing to working people. So in a way, they have this greed, apart from the greed for political power and the greed for control. They have this greed for finding a way new, innovative way of controlling people. So targeting, we are guinea pigs. Some of us may be a bit into activism. Some of us, like myself, can be a lot of into activism. A lot of us, they don't have anything to do with activism whatsoever. They don't have a clue. Why they're picking on me? Because we are guinea pigs, It's not entirely random, this election process. It's not entirely random. So if you cross the wrong person, if you make a lot of complaint to a local council, they think you are a nuisance, or then they're looking for people. They're looking for guinea pigs. They're looking for guinea pigs all the time. So that, you do something out of the ordinary. You clash with someone powerful. You talk about information which they think should remain private. You leak some information. You talk too much. You have a big mouth or something from their point of view. And then they're all the time looking for guinea pigs to induce them into this experiment. So there you go. You become a target individual. So there doesn't need to be a specific reason, because they're all the time looking for new guinea pigs. And like they keep guinea pigs, like they keep them in cages, like to control them. That they don't like them to roam around like rats with the top of their head removed and the brain sticking out or something. They keep them in cages. Our cage is, as targeted guinea pigs is, what you may say, our cage is people surrounding us, their ignorance and stupidity. But more specifically, our cage, our invisible cage, is the fact that they completely assassinate our character, right? They completely assassinate. We are bad, we are danger, we are a pervert, a pedophile, you name it. And then they make up all this kind of shit that they spread it as much as they can. So that's our invisible cage. Yeah, so you will find anyone, any politician, any willing to help us, any anyone in the medical profession willing to help us, any lawyer prepared to represent us. So because we are very dangerous people, is official. And if you look, if you look at the mainstream media, okay, is it not a lie? Is like someone said, if you repeat the lies enough times, then it becomes the official truth. If then repeat the same lie a few more times, then you may start to believe it yourself. Someone say that. They say it was Goebbels, but as the Nazi minister for propaganda, we don't know really. That's part of folklore. But yeah, so basically, but you need to look at in the context of the kind of garbage people are being, in terms of information, of understanding of the world, or understanding, you need to understand in the context, of the kind of garbage people are being fed, ordinary people are being fed from the cradle to the grave, in terms of lies, in terms of media lies, in terms of disinformation, in terms of misinformation. So you get, so Jeremy Corbyn is supposed to be an anti-Semite, Saddam Hussein was supposed to have, they're making story up all the time, Saddam Hussein was supposed to have, weapon of mass destruction, and when Dr. Kelly, got a bit upset and leak some information to the contrary, then they end up committing suicide. So I hold the story about Saddam Assad gassing his own people, and then you have tons of evidence that Assad never gassed his own people, but it is terrorists that we have been. Western country, NATO, both sides of the Atlantic, we have been, these terrorists, we have been, as nations, we have been arming them and training them and bankrolling them and giving them intelligence and giving them political cover and giving them political media cover. Since the time of sponsoring terrorism, that's what we do. We sponsor terrorism. We have been sponsoring terrorism for centuries. European country, Western country, the United States. We have been sponsoring terrorism for centuries. Then we say, we go to people say, you need to surrender all your privacy, all your information and civil liberties, because we are fighting a war on terrorism. I just, if I can find it, I just came across a very interesting article. If I can still find it, let's see. It's come from the excellent. From the excellent Brass Check TV, which is basically mainly it's providing you with excellent information. They're quite reliable because, with other sources of information, I am on their mailing list. Just this morning I received an email. Every day they send out any number of videos, It's called Brass Check TV, which I'm sure most people listening to me, they know already about them. Anyway, they sent out this email, which is the title is "Guess Who Created Radical Islam." So what I've been telling people, like before, which our nation, Western nation, sponsor of terrorism is something which not go back decades, go back centuries. It is this Brass Check TV report. It says, since the 19th century, the UK has had a simple policy: supported and encouraged radical Islam to destabilize countries that would otherwise be resistant to their globalist schemes. Right? Then there is a little video which I don't have the time to play now. I watch it. So, so exactly as I said people many times before, the West use of terrorism as a political tool, it doesn't go back decades, it goes back centuries. I mentioned, that's to say, like this country using try to radicalize Muslim. I don't mean anyway to mean it as any reflection on Muslim. That's nothing to do with that. It's just they quite prepared to jump on any movement if they think they can use any movement or terrorism as a political tool. They will do it. We know that we can at the time of President Nasser every time you get a government in the world which doesn't cater to the to the interest of the what I call the terror financial banking cartel. Then you get they start sponsoring they create AstroTurf movement in the country. They start promoting subversion, regime change, political assassination of leaders, sponsoring terrorism in the country, sabotaging the economy, playing game with the currency of the country. So as soon as you get any kind of political leader or any political leadership is not prepared to completely betray their own people to look after the interest of what I call the international banking cartel. So you get all the full treatment. You get the full treatment. They create AstroTurf opposition. They sponsor terrorism. They sponsor violence. Then they accuse the government of repression. They've been doing it. They probably do it by number. They have probably manual and books telling them how to do it, and they've been doing it for centuries. So yeah. So what? I don't know how I end up talking about this. Actually, I get a bit carried away. But so yeah. No, I was talking about the three different. The different layers of social control. So we have the totally corrupt, I mean, judicial system. The people are so fortunate not to have had any dealing with the judicial system. They may still, nurture this illusion that we have a fair and impartial judicial system. So first layer of social control, judicial system. Second layer, psychiatric system. If you can find, in the unlikely event of being unable to find it to pin on you, they can try to make up things you may have not said and not done to make out that you are mentally ill. And the third layer of social control is targeting. Imagine how wonderful it is for them to target. Imagine targeting is like their wet dream in the way of social control. The only thing getting in the way at the moment that at the time when all the ships are getting already a bit restless all over the world, they don't want to start all the ship by rolling out all this technology on starting on political activists, the whistleblower, because they're afraid of the backlash. But But imagine in the future a world when they feel quite confident that they have been enslaving everybody. People in China, people in the West, slave labor everywhere, everyone in debt, everyone terrorized or speaking out because they can incur some kind of digital debt, or they can lose their job, and then after that they're going to lose their family, and then after that they're going to lose their home and become homeless and die in the streets. So imagine if they succeed in this enslavement program, because it's incremental. The more they manage to screw up people, the more they think, oh, let's try something else. Let's bring it to the next level. It's incremental. So let's say they come to the point when they feel quite confident as criminals. They say, oh yeah, we got everyone in debt, everyone terrorized or speaking out about anything because of the consequences. Everyone but having to work 3 jobs to survive, put food on the table, and then in the evening they to drop by the food bank. So, let's say they get to this situation, the destroying of political opposition. Then what, then they will feel confident enough, if someone is creating them any problem, let's roll out all this technology on them. Let's try to roll them out on all political activists, all whistleblower, anyone causing any trouble for us, what better for them? Well, they don't need to bother with the psychiatric system, but they don't need to bother with the judicial system. They just start everyone causing them any problem, everyone they don't like, everyone who said they can start frying them with microwave weapon at home, right? So it's perfect for them. And the people, why are they targeting me? Because you are a guinea pig, because you are developing the perfect system of control and manipulation known to humanity. It's the only thing that is stopping them at the moment to roll this technology out in a major way. They have, you have the yellow Western powers. They're afraid of the backlash. But if they come to a point when they're no longer afraid of the backlash, we feel they are in control enough to start rolling out, what better way of dealing with, you can use the judicial system, but it's still a bit awkward. You can use the psychiatric system, but it's still a bit awkward. If anyone who causes you any problem, you can start frying down with microwave in their own homes. That's perfect. So people say, why are they targeting me? Because you are a guinea pig and they're trying to develop a new layer of social control, which will be the perfect social control. Think of that. They can use this system to completely 24/7 spy on everybody. At the moment they don't even need to be done by a human. The moment is perceived by all this artificial intelligence gobshite that you are stepping out of line, they can stop with you with these microwave weapons. So why they're doing this to me? Because you're a guinea pig. They're developing the system, because you need to understand that like with weapon system or crowd control system, they won't be able to develop anything if they can test it on people or test it on when they develop the nuclear weapons. They were destroying all this little island and making all the environment radioactive in the South Pacific or something. So giving cancer to millions of people and stuff. So every time they come up with some new insanity, they won't be able to develop it unless they test it in anger in some way. So why they developing all this new weapon system, and then one of the reasons. And then they start all this new war of new invasion. One of they developed all this weapon system, and they're really anxious to try them out. It's like when a child gets a new toy, they develop all this terrific, horrific new weapon system, and they're very anxious to have the time, the opportunity to test them in anger. So that's one of the reasons they're starting all this illegal genocidal war all over the world. Uh, one of the reasons, I mean, if you look at the Middle East, I wouldn't say that is the main reason. The main reason is basically to fight war for the state of Israel. That's the way, they invaded Iraq. That was the main problem with Saddam Hussein, that he started fancying himself as a pan-Arab leader, and he started to make belligerent noise towards the state of Israel. So that's why they had to, you know, to, the, you know, to go after Saddam Hussein and destroy Iraq. So in the process, they completely, they completely bomb everything back into the Middle Ages. So let's say, like, if there is a new leader in the future, which again is starting to, make again belligerent noise against the state of Israel, then he will preside over a country which has been completely destroyed. So it won't be able to do a lot of damage to Israel. So, so they completely bombed the country back into the Middle Ages and stuff. So yeah, I tend to digress a bit. So what was I thought? Yeah, going back, there is the third layer of social control targeting. So if you think about it, what better? If someone is causing problem for the establishment and the deep state, yeah, you don't need to bother like making up some story about making stuff up about getting them entangled in the judicial system. Or you won't need to bother about making some stuff up to get them entangled into the psychiatric system. You can just use this weapon to fry them at home and torture them and keep them awake at night. It's perfect. It's perfect. It's the third layer of social control. It's the best one. So the people say, why are they targeting me? Because you're a guinea pig. There may be some reasons. There's always a reason for something. You may come to the attention of some evil person or something which is involved with this program, and so why they start picking on you. It's fairly random, but you're a guinea pig because they're developing think of all the different systems of social control. What can be better for social control? To get all if someone creating problem for the corporative state, to get all his neighbors to harass them and persecute them. You control the person, you control the neighbor as well. How efficient to fry them in Tehran with microwave weapons, You don't need to bother with the judicial system, we don't need to tamper with the psychiatric system. It's perfect. So if people are asking why they're picking on me, because you're a guinea pig. They're developing the third layer, the third more efficient layer of social control, targeting, organized stalking and electronic harassment. Yeah. So, yeah, that's. I think I touch on many of the things I wanted to talk about today. I really hope tomorrow there's going to be a lot of people in the cafe Frame Meeting House between 6 and 8 p.m. 10, if people want, after we can, we can. I think the cafe is closing like. About 8 o'clock, but they're quite tolerant. There have been time in the past we have been sticking around until 9 o'clock, and then they don't bother us. They just don't care less or something. But then at 9 o'clock, when they close all the main doors and stuff, they come along and say, "Oh, we need to go," or something. So I hope there's going to be a huge amount of people tomorrow, and yeah. And I think that the key word is enslavement. We're talking about all these different systems of social control. Enslavement. That is the enslavement. Increased number of people being pushed into homelessness. And then when they find themselves in the street, as often as not, they get actually criminalized. They try to criminalize homelessness at the moment. It's quite breaking, and increased number of people being pushed into abject poverty and debt. And obviously, when you're worried about feeding your kids and you're thousand in debt, they probably, not only you don't have the time to protest against all the criminal activities and schemes, but you don't even have the time to inform yourself. You don't even have the time to watch the news. Or if you watch the news, you probably switch off the telly, oh, BBC News, 10 o'clock news, and you're too tired in the ideal mental state to to take in all the lies and the propaganda and the misinformation, the information, you name it. So yeah, so enslavement is a word, and it's a big battle between for the future of humanity, between a small number of people totally evil, totally twisted, and the rest of humanity. And I don't honestly know how it's going to end, because these people seem we're talking about people which who through the century they gain control over every single aspect of society in the West. I mean, people think like, oh, we have gone from the absolute monarchies of the 17th and 18th century toward democracy. That's a lot of bull. I mean, we don't have, we don't move to democracy. We move from the control from absolute monarchies to the control of to the allegedly benevolent dictatorship of this, what I call this international money lending, international banking cartel. So it is not democracy. That's part of the brainwashing of democracy. So we move from the absolute monarchy of the 16th, of the 17th, 18th century to to the being completely controlled by these bankers and stooges, and a small number of banking families attend a little army of people supporting. A little army of people have a vested interest in supporting or they think at least they have a vested interest in supporting the status quo, the current banking dictatorship, you may call it. So yeah, it ends being very clever. They first gain control of the. I mean, there's information. There's a lot of information available, even from the historic point of view. I mean, how they managed to gain to create the Federal Reserve in the United States. How they managed to gain complete control of the Bank of England. Well, actually, how they managed to create the Bank of England in this country, and they did completely, which is a private institution, the Bank of England. It's just it's part of the government. No, it's not. It's owned by private. There's even a secret, some legislation whereby preventing the disclosure. Yeah. It's true. There is even some legislation preventing under the Secret Service Act, preventing the disclosure, think of that, of the ownership of the Bank of England. So not only is privately owned, they are allowed to print money and to lend money to our government with interest. It's not our government printing money. You think, oh, that's crazy, they totally perverse. Yes, that's the way it is. So, but there's even Secret Service is some legislation, basically. Even in the House of Parliament, I'm not entirely sure about the ins and outs, but I think there is some rule or some legislation whereby members of Parliament are not allowed. You can Google it up if you. I know it sounds unbelievable. You can Google it up. Members of Parliament are not allowed to ask questions about the names, well, not the choice. No, well, not the names, but about who the ownership of the Bank of England, who owns share in the Bank of England. So, so it's like it's like like some kind of Orwellian. First you start to discover that actually, the Bank of England is actually privately owned, but then you start to discover, actually, not even a member of Parliament can ask questions about the ownership. So you just get, deeper and deeper into this kind of stuff. But if you go around in the street asking people, do you think the Bank of England is publicly owned, a part of the government? They say, oh yes. They probably find one person out of 1,000 which have any suspicions about the ownership of the Bank of England. So these people, they gain complete control of the money supplies, and they start getting, little by little. And in mid 1800, they bought Reuters. They start buying out all the news agencies, and then they start getting control of entertainment, all the big corporation, oil, pharma, defense. They complete control, most members of parliament in this country, most members of the Congress and the Senate in the United States. They completely control the political machinery. And basically, they pushing humanity in the direction of, it is becoming very trendy to use the word extinction at the moment, but I think they genuinely putting humanity at the risk of extinction, they promoting policies, a scheme which is completely devastating our planets. First they were saying, oh, we don't do any chemtrails. Now they're saying, oh, we are going to do them. Oh, yes, we are doing them to counter climate change. So they're doing horrific things to our planet also. So I think there is a big struggle going on at the moment between, for the future of humanity, if humanity has to have any future. And so they're quite happy to instigate dangerous tension with between NATO and Russia, because one of the main reasons they were like, until they start filling Syria with all NATO terrorists, which most of them, supposed, the Catholic peaceful protester which have been oppressed by Assad. But, until they start filling Syria with all these NATO terrorists, which is all, arming them and training them and giving them intelligence, bankrolling them, giving them the 4x4, the famous 4x4, all of a sudden they came out of the desert, out of nowhere, driving all this brand new Toyota 4x4. Where did they get them? And then later you get this little bit of information. Actually, that was out of the U.S. State Department, the Toyota 4x4. But never mind. And so, so they start filling Syria with all these NATO terrorists, and they were giving them money and training and drugs, because most of the people are on drugs as well. Because, if you to do the crazy things they were doing, you need to be on drugs. No sane person in a normal state of mind will do some of the things these people were doing in Syria. So, so basically, so it was all part of the Greater Israel Project. So they tried to basically destroy most of the countries in the Middle East. That they got some quite, a lot of traction with that, because now, if you look at Libya, if you look at Egypt after the so-called Arab Spring, and then you look at what's happening in Lebanon, in Jordan, in Syria, Iraq, and so they made to destroy, to create Greater Israel, they made to destroy most of the Middle East. But let's say they get stopped at Damascus, on the way to Damascus, right? Like the Nazis were stopped in Stalingrad, by Russia. We lost 26 million people in World War II, by the way, incidentally. So, if you wonder who defeated Hitler, maybe, that there is a clue there. But, like the Nazis were stopped at Stalingrad, I think the, I don't want to say it too offensive, but hey, these people were stopped at the door of Damascus by the intervention of Russia. So it had inflicted a mortal blow to the Greater Israel Project, because they will say, what is the Greater Israel Project? The Greater Israel Project is basically the notion that for the prosperity, of the state of Israel is necessary, you know, not just a state of, perpetual conflict, because you get all these Israeli politicians like Golda Meir and some of the other ones, and when they are alive, they do a horrific thing to the Palestinian people, which mainly no one knows about because they go completely unreported by mainstream media anyway. So I mean, like a bit of a secret. But so all these Israeli politicians, when they are still alive, they do in office, they do horrific things to the Palestinian people, which no one knows about because they delete the stuff from history book. They make sure that they go completely unreported by mainstream media. But then when they retire, they have this kind of habit of starting to spill all the beans. And then so you get these politicians like Golda Meir and Isaac Rabin and the rest of them. And they write their memoirs. They state quite openly. They say the only way to maintain to preserve the state of Israel is to maintain a situation of perpetual tension and conflict in the Middle East. So when they retire, they get all touchy-feely, they spilling the beans. They say, yes, that's our philosophy to preserve the existence and the prosperity of the state of Israel. We need to maintain a state of perpetual tension and conflict in the Middle East. They're quite honest. There were quite a number of them, a former head of the Mossad and things, they all saying the same thing. So they're quite honest. After they finish slaughtering and killing Palestinians, they retired, they're quite honest about it. They know, the only way to preserve it, the state of Israel, to maintain a state of perpetual even tension and conflict in the Middle East. But then it's not just preserving, they want to, the Greater Israel Project is about destroying most countries in the Middle East. And a good template of that would be what's happening now in Libya, right? So, in Iraq, it's not by accident that Iraq, for many years, this thing is slightly more sedated now, but for many years was in the same identical condition Libya is in now. So that's the plan they had for Syria, So the idea is to the Greater Israel Project. We need to understand it. It's not so much to extend the actual border of the state of Israel, even though they probably would like that very much. I mean, thank you very much. Yes, please. I mean, recently they went to the some Israeli ambassador went to the United Nations. I think it was a few months ago, they suggested that due to the state of unrest and conflict in Syria, they will be quite right and proper for the state of Israel to permanently annex the Golan Heights. And to the credit of the much maligned United Nations, the answer was that was more or less what they replied to the Israeli representative when they suggested that. But the Greater Israel Project is basically about having a state of perpetual war in unrest and carnage and bombing countries back into the Middle Age all over the Middle East, so that Israel could prosper and dictate the policies or control the entire region, because then you get all these different groups fighting each other in different countries. They all need to fight, to carry on slaughtering each other. They need money and arms, intelligence. So they all say on the paper, they say, we are all against all these Muslim different factions and stuff. They say, we are dead against Israel. But in practice, what they do actually, all the time they have to go for Israel to get intelligence, weapon assistance, aerial assistance, stuff for the leader internis incarnate, constantly conducting all the different countries in the Middle East. So that is the Greater Israel Project, which also Iraq was actually quite important because to destroy Iraq was also quite important because there was this pipeline connecting Kirkuk in the Kurdish region of Iraq, connecting was going all the way from Kirkuk to the state of Israel. It was closed down by Saddam Hussein at some point, or by the Ba'ath Party even before Saddam Hussein, by other members of the Ba'ath Party in Iraq even before Saddam Hussein. So that's one of the main reasons they completely bombed Iraq into the Middle Ages, because one of the first things they did after destroying everything, they reopened the pipeline connecting the Kurdish region at Kirkuk with the state of Israel. So that's the Great Israel Project. And then, until then, they were not so much, all these bankers, they were not so much concerned about Russia, because, just shortly before Russia, they managed to bully Russia into acquiescing to the complete destruction of Libya in the UN Security Council. So they thought, okay, we can always push them and, get them to do whatever we want anyway. So they were not too concerned about Russia prior to Russia intervention in Syria. But, Russia, at this point, they have enough of being pushed around by the West, because a lot of these foreign terrorists fighting in Russia, they were actually coming from Chechnya, from some of the southern republic of the Russia. So, so the Russian it's not like the West that, like, they spend 100 years like, sponsoring terrorism and then pretending that they're fighting terrorism. Russia, they scare shitless of this stuff, because there will be a very convenient way for the West to destabilize Russia. Russia has this substantial, amongst other things, a substantial Muslim minority, particularly in the south, and it is being used by. So the Russians, they not play with terrorism like the NATO countries and stuff. They fucking scare shit out of this stuff. When the West and NATO, they sponsor terrorism in Afghanistan. Afghanistan, when they were allied of the old Soviet Union, Afghanistan was very prosperous. A very prosperous country. They have good quality, you name it, transport, road. Everything was destroyed subsequently. But the women were free. They can be judges, a general, join the army, do whatever they wanted. So it was still a Muslim country, but it was a very moderate Muslim country, and. There were good quality public services, a good quality infrastructure. And then, we're not, it's not a conspiracy theory. Long before all this happened, Zbigniew Brzezinski, which was National Security Advisor with President Jimmy Carter, was writing papers saying that how we should radicalize Muslims in Afghanistan and draw the old Soviet Union to invade Afghanistan. And Zbigniew Brzezinski was saying in his paper that will be the old Soviet Union Vietnam, right? So we are going to draw them to invade Afghanistan. And that may, hopefully, from his point of view, cause the complete collapse of the Soviet Union. And that's what happened, in fact. They start. So Afghan Muslims were quite moderate. You know, before they start, you know, parachuting all these Salafist preachers from Saudi Arabia into the country, if there is some of the local clerics opposing that, they were systematically getting murdered. Yeah, that was what happened for a few years. So Afghanistan got radicalized. Uh, Afghanistan got radicalized. The Soviet Union felt at some point that they had to move in to defend the government. The fairly secular government of Afghanistan, we had created in the country quite a lot of prosperity. And then, you know, that was the old Soviet Union, Vietnam, and shortly after that, the Soviet Union collapsed, exactly like Zenio Brzezinski was writing a few years earlier. So in a way, they thought they could keep pushing Russia around, like they, you know, like they did for many years with Yeltsin and like they did with the invasion and bombing on Libya, when they bully Russia into playing along, or at least acquiescing what was being done. But you know, but Russia, they don't like the, you know, the West sponsoring terrorism. They caused the collapse of the old Soviet Union. They caused, after that, the CIA was doing exactly the same thing they did previously in Afghanistan. They were doing that in Chechnya, causing a bloody civil war, which almost caused the collapse of Russia, like they meant before to cause the collapse of, or a bloody civil war, which was risking Russia to become a failed state. So Russia is they're not playing with terrorism like NATO does and pretending they're fighting it and sponsoring it. Russia, they fucking care shitless of this stuff. This stuff caused the collapse of the old Soviet Union. That's caused very severe problem with the civil war in Chechnya a few years later. And then they saw what happened in Syria. Syria was the only one of the few places when Russia had any, you know, I think possibly the only country when Russia at the time had a foreign military base. I mean, unlike the United States that they have some 1,600 all over the world. You know, Russia in Syria had a naval base on the port of Tartus in Syria, which was the only way for them to have a military presence in the Mediterranean Sea. Right? So that was a concern for Russia, obviously. But also they saw that many thousands of these foreign fighters trying to destroy Syria completely were coming from the south of Russia, Chechnya and you know, all the different republic of the Russian Federation. And they were thinking like, oh, these people, they may come back to Russia. We are going to have another Libya on our doorstep. So Russia, they you know, they were not throwing their weight around. They are genuinely concerned because, like I said, like the West is playing with terrorism. Russia, they are fucking shitless about this stuff, because this stuff caused the collapse of the old Soviet Union. Almost, with Chechnya, it's almost caused the collapse of the old Russian Federation. And they were thinking that most of these fighters in Syria, they were coming from the Russian Federation. They were not throwing their weight around. They intervened in Syria to protect themselves, right? They intervened in Syria to protect themselves. And after they intervened in Syria, you know, there was this terrorist, for their terrorists, their sponsors, there was their Stalingrad. They were stopped literally on the doors of Damascus. And then the Russian intervention managed to, in a way, turn around all the situation in the Middle East. But because the state of Israel, by a situation where they were able to control it, to manipulate most country in the Middle East by trying to completely destroy Syria, which something they completely sponsored and promoted, and they were treating these terrorists in the hospital and arming them, and we have the evidence. They actually managed to, with the intervention of Russia, they actually managed to strengthen the so-called axis of resistance, which include, Iran and Syria and Hezbollah in Lebanon, all the axis of resistance, which are very much concerned about the fate of the Palestinian people. So they get really mad at Russia because they got from a situation where they're able more or less to pull the string and control the entire Middle East to a situation with the much hated axis of resistance now is going from strength to strength. There is alliances between Syria and Hezbollah and Iran and Iraq and Lebanon is turning a bit toward the axis of resistance. Jordans, they start to understand that they need to shift their political position a bit and being less controlled by Israel. So they get really mad at Russia for doing this to them. And now what they're doing basically, they putting because they got mad at Russia, after the Russian intervention in Syria, all we heard all the time is Russia. All these like prostitutes in the mainstream media. They're quite happy to recycle all kind of nonsense, all kind of lies, all kind of misinformation, all kind of disinformation about Russia. They're completely controlled by the bankers, and they know if say something different, they end up losing their job, and I mean, they're getting on welfare. So I mean, so it's no brainer for these journalists, They know what the score is of losing their job, losing their family, losing their house, home. So they've been the mainstream media, which the bankers completely control now after the intervention in Russia, intervention in Syria. It's been Russia all the time, the demonization of Russia, most of the story completely false, completely made up, and basically the main thing is they don't seem to concern about the eventuality of nuclear holocaust. So they just go down this road of increasing tension, tearing up peace treaty or denuclearization treaties with total abandonment. They're going down this road. And the journalists that they completely control, that they possibly has less, they have less integrity. They call it prostitute, but they probably prostitute has a lot more integrity than these people, journalists. They get the instruction, they go, with total abandonment. They don't care if you're going to die, all die in a nuclear holocaust. They just Russia, demonization, 24/7. Because they get frustrated with their little, Greater Israel project. They don't care. They're frustrated. They're angry. They don't care if you're all going to die in a nuclear holocaust. So shortly after, the Russia decision to intervene in Syria, they organized this coup. In Ukraine. In Ukraine, it was a democratic country. The president was Yanushchenko was being elected fair and square. no vote. They were when they at the end of when they start all this complete astroturf bullshit in Ukraine, which is also, yeah, you know, it was all manipulated. They do this thing by the book. I mean, by numbers. I mean, they've been doing it for centuries. They know how to do it. So, I mean, try to inflame the public opinion, try to pretend having sniper firing on both sides of the, fire on the police, having sniper firing on the police, fire on the protesters. You know, this for them is just, you know, they can do this stuff in their sleep. So they're starting on Ukraine. They starting on Ukraine, and they knew by what they organized this coup in Ukraine, they were going to create an enormous problem for Russia, which they did. You know, Russia had to annex Crimea, which is, by the way, was the only, you know, there was a huge, in Crimea, there was a huge, you know, Russian military bases. They can allow to this kind of Nazi criminals. Most of them were not even Ukrainian. They were being trained abroad to do to people in you know, to the people in the military bases in Crimea, to do what they did to some Union people in Odessa, which were basically, you know, murder, defenseless, totally defenseless. Their only fault was they were peacefully opposing the coup in Kiev, that they would get murdered in the most horrific way. So, you know, you can see a scenario whereby this criminal were getting in Crimea and doing the same thing to the people in the Russian military base there. So, I mean, and then they started to bomb indiscriminately the east of Ukraine, when there was a huge ethnic Russian majority there. So they get really frustrated because they saw, oh, Russia, after all, we can't really control Russia completely. So they wake up to the fact that they, oh, actually, okay, you can no longer completely control Russia like in the good old day of Boris Yeltsin. You know, they've been doing terminal damage to our Greater Israel project, because from a situation where Israel was very much on the offensive, thinking that they can completely control the entire region and manipulate people against each other, manipulate the Kurds against the central government in Baghdad, etc. They come to a situation where the axis of resistance of groups and countries concerned about the fate of the Palestinian people has been ended up being greatly strengthened. So they get mad at Russia, which is, so that was a mortal blow to the Greater Israel project, and they get mad at Russia now. They stage of the coup in Ukraine. By the time they staged the coup, in Ukraine, it was just 3 or 4 months away from a general election in Ukraine. There was no indication whatsoever that the Yanushchenko, the current government, had any plan or any intention to rig the forthcoming election. So, I mean, if they wanted to get rid of Yanushchenko's government, saying that they were corrupt, every government in the world is corrupt anyway. Find me a government which is not corrupt. But they wanted to get rid of Yanushchenko at the current Ukrainian government of the time, which they allegedly was corrupt. They make up stories, they make up narrative, and then they get the people in the mainstream media repeating the term endlessly, and then they become the official truth, become the gospel. So, but they could get rid of Yanushchenko through an election. It was just 3 or 4 months away from a general election in Ukraine, but they didn't. They had other plans. And then and then you get now this in Ukraine, which was had some economic problem at the time. They staged this coup. It was a coup organized from abroad, You know the story about Victoria Nuland at the State Department and pulling all the strings. It was a coup mainly sponsored by the Ziocons in the United States. But so now we have this situation where you have a country which was had some economic problems, but it was fairly prosperous, and now it's Ukraine. The living standard they completely gone in the toilet. I mean, every living standard indicator, like from unemployment to wages to pension to anything, it's just gone straight down the toilet. They managed to agitate the Ukrainian population because they control the media in most countries in the world, so they create a story about corruption in the government, and then the people they control in the media, they keep repeating it 24/7 in the most hateful way, try to, in a way which is designed to create anger and hatred and stuff, and then you get, and then you get to manipulate people into color revolutions, which is totally orchestrated in Washington, in London, and in Tel Aviv. So yeah, so basically I think I started rambling a bit, but I wanted to, I also wanted to, I wanted to invite people to come tomorrow to this meeting, which is, again, I repeat, is between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. in the cafe at Friend Meeting House in front of Euston Station in London. So I wanted to invite people. I want to explain why I think it's important for people to work together, to meet in person, because we are constantly told, we are constantly being told, like, oh, there is thousands and thousands of us, and we are constantly told we are this close to cracking targeting. It's going to end tomorrow. There's this new initiative. It's going to end targeting forever. It never ends. Yeah, but then so you have all these. I'm not. Maybe the people disseminating this kind of information. They acting in total good faith. That they try, to create hope in a situation which is otherwise rather hopeless and desperate. So, I mean, I don't blame the people for... But then you have the reality, you have all these people say, oh, we have thousands of us, so we all the time organize this big event, these big initiatives, and we are going to crack it tomorrow, right? But then you have the actual reality of individual targeting individual, with repetitious, but which basically they see their electronic harassment getting worse every day. They see the harassment they get in the community getting worse every day. Most target individuals, they say, oh yeah, I mean, I keep having all this contact online, but I never met another target individual in person. And then most target individuals, they isolated. So I think we need to have international initiative. We need to act every possible level. We may be able to exert an influence in stopping this horror, this horrific thing they're doing to us. Any avenue, any option is worth pursuing, I think. But I think the main thing, like in the same way that we've been told, like for many years, I see a little similarity there in the way we have been told for many years that all times we were coming from globalization. Then we start to learn globalization is a horrific thing. We want localization, not globalization. By the same token, I think, okay, we have all these big initiatives that they're supposed to end targeted tomorrow. Right? Let's take part in them and support them, because we need to act at every possible level to try to stop what is going on. But at the same time, I think localization is important. Maybe everything starts with localization. If you don't have localization, you don't have anything else. So what I mean by localization, we have this country, we have London, probably thousands of people being targeted, no event being held for months. So we need to get people together in person, to meet up in person, to exchange experiences. It may not be so easy, because everyone has a different experience that they may not recognize or acknowledge. But we need to get people together to talk, to try to support each other, to try to befriend each other. And then maybe sometime along the line, people may want to consider a well-thought form of activism, because, in the same way there are effective forms of activism, there is also out there thousands of different forms of activism which are a complete waste of time. And that is part of the fact that, the targeting, without intending in any way to point a finger in any specific direction, absolutely not, but the target individual communities is infiltrated from top to bottom. So, and the activism community, the ordinary activism community, is heavily infiltrated. We know about all these spy caps, increasing information coming out about all these spy caps. In this country, they were infiltrating maybe up to 1,000 different political organizations. Most of these organizations were totally law-abiding and peaceful organizations, right? I remember this little piece of information I came by at some point, which is like they were having this, they were targeting a lot for some reason of ecological group, just a group of people who were peacefully concerned about the environment. It is a small group of people which were actually liaising with green groups in this country, green groups or ecological groups, ecological activism group on the continent, in Ireland, in Germany, on the continent. And then later we found out that two of these people, there was a little team of 3 people liaising, keeping contact, and maybe organizing things together with ecological group in Ireland and the continent. And later it was discovered that of this little team of 3 people, like liaising, keeping in touch, and etc., 2 were police informers, 2 out of 3. So that gives you some idea, without going into it. I tend to digress a bit, so I think it. But so that shows you the level of infiltration you have in ordinary political groups, often law-abiding, peaceful political groups, right? So a team of people liaising, at least 2 of these people were police informers. We don't even know that the third person was actually genuine, just we don't know anything about the third person. So at least 2 people out of 3 were police informers. So I think that gives you some idea of the infiltration on ordinary political groups. I think it's fair to be honest with you, without wanting to point a finger to make any say anything which may point a finger in any specific direction. I think in the TI community is even worse, the level of infiltration, because we are guinea pigs. Usually they keep guinea pig in their cages, right? They keep guinea pig in cages. We are guinea pigs. What is our invisible cage? Invisible cage is the invisible cage which makes sure that most target individuals spend all their life completely isolated, at least in terms of real contact with other target individuals. Maybe the people may have a lot of contact online, but at least most target individuals they actually a lot of people never met another target individual, etc. Our invisible cage is the fact that the complete evil campaign of character assassination they're conducting against us, and also the fact that our community is I have to say this because it's the point, like, if you want to do something, move things forward, you need to know where you stand. Yeah? If you don't know where you are, if you are in the forest, you don't know where you are, like you can see anything or any landmark or anything. It's, I want to go in this direction, but So I don't want to bitch about anyone. I don't pointing, making ins or anything about anyone. But the thing is, if you want to know where you want to go, you need first to know where to where you are. Our invisible cage is the fact that unfortunately the TI community is infiltrated from top to bottom in a massive way. So it does. So the target individual, and then you decide at some point you want to reach out, and the chances are, purely on a statistical basis, they're probably going to reach out in to some people which is infiltrated by the intelligence community in our community. As that was going to happen. So that's part of the invisible cage. So you reach out to the wrong person. What happened? If you are lucky, the experience, is going to end up in complete disappointment. If you are unlucky, you may actually, get in contact with someone going to land you in serious trouble and do all kind of stuff to you. So, and then after that, obviously, people retreat in their private sphere, and I think for a time, at least, they give up reaching out to other target individuals. So, it's all part of the invisible cage of us targeted guinea pigs. So, invisible cage, complete character, completely ruthless evil character assassination without any regard, without any decency, assassinate the character of people. And then, the total infiltration of the TI community. That's why when you talk with some people, or say, actually, I'd like to meet you or something, I never met any other target individual in person before, that's the invisible cage. That's what they call the effect of the invisible cage. So I think it's quite important, and it's not going to be easy because there will always be people talking, having different experiences. And it's the people say something which is not familiar to them. They think, they react with suspicion and stuff. So it's not going to be easy, but I think there need to be some weekly TI meeting in London, because it's totally crazy that, in a country, in a city which probably some of the, if not the capital of targeting in the world, it's certainly one of the main centers of targeting in the world, it's totally wrong that there is nothing going on at the moment, at least nothing involving people meeting in person or doing things together in person. So I think this has to be done. It's not necessarily easy. It's not necessarily entirely pleasant. Because not all the experience I had in the past from organizing meetings were entirely positive. So it's not something which necessarily is fun to do, but I think it needs to be done. And I hope likewise people will realize. Also, a lot of people, if they watch this broadcast, they also realize the importance of trying to make an effort, and they get off the proverbial and try to come along and see what it's like, and try to contribute with their experience. Yeah. So that's the first thing I wanted to establish about the meeting. Why I'm trying to organize this meeting. What is the context in which I try to organize this meeting? The other thing I wanted to make people aware again about this thing, if I can go back to the email and find it. Where is it? Yeah, that's as I said. I used to do a lot of outreach in the past at political rally, political meeting, marches. I kind of stopped doing most of that, but that's there is this political protest on Thursday, the 31st of January, so a little more than a week time, a 2-day protest on Thursday, the 31st of January, and on Friday, the 1st of February, which I think is very much worthwhile for myself and maybe a handful of a few other targeted individuals to attend. It is a protest organized by Big Brother Watch, defending civil liberties, protecting privacy, that's the interlogo, which they intend to protect, because there is this the Metropolitan Police at the time they experimenting with facial recognition cameras, and so they had done 3 or 4 experiments before. They usually localized to a certain area of London, and a certain time, you know, 1 day, 2 days, they experimented. So I think the previous one was about some sporting event in Wembley a few weeks ago, which actually ended in a complete fiasco, because I believe that they identify a number of people, and 99% of the identification were actually wrong. And then also people, a number of people get wrongly hassled, because they thought they were wrongly identified as being criminal or wanted person or something. So I mean, that's apparently was a complete fiasco. The one around Wembley Stadium, I think, a few weeks ago. Now they're trying to organize another one, which is going to be in a week time, on Thursday, a 2-day event organized by the Metropolitan Police. It's going to be on Thursday, the 31st of January, and on Friday, the 1st of February. They are still to announce a location for their wondrous experiment. So, but as soon as we know the location, so the Big Brother Watch people, they're going to be there, a leaflet to the public to let them know what they're doing to them, because they don't have a clue, smile on camera. So so to let people know what they're being used as guinea pig, and to spread information about other issue related to the civil liberty, protecting privacy, etc., etc. So I plan to organize maybe just a couple of, they're going to be there. They intend to organize a kind of a full day event on both days. I think I'm probably going to try to organize just a couple hours event, maybe on once a day. I don't want to, because sometimes if you get too ambitious, then you don't get anyone to turn up, and people get discouraged. Oh, it's just too much, I don't want to take part. I mean, people feel a bit overwhelmed. So I just in one of the today, either Thursday or Friday, I probably try to organize a couple of hour event for target individual on the location chosen, where we can we can both interact with members of the public, leafleting about targeting, and we can both interact with Big Brother Watch people, and let them try to explain to them about targeting in a rational way, because no point in like venting and saying stuff so they think we're freaking them out. Try to explain to them in as rational a way as possible what is being done to target the individual. That is just a social engineering program. They're trying to develop technique and technology of social control and manipulation, which, when you think about it, will be perfect. If they, when they feel confident enough to roll out this thing on political activists, whistleblowers, the entire population, it's perfect. If someone bothers them, if some denounce it a crime or whatever, they don't need to drag the person through the judicial system. They don't need to drag the person through the psychiatric system, they just can, fry them with microwave at home. So it's exactly why they're targeting us. Yeah, it's pretty obvious. It's the perfect way of suppressing people. It may cause them any problem. Yeah, so that's the other event. I'm going to invite. I'm going to organize a Facebook event about this Big Brother Watch thing. And yeah, well, as soon as I know the location, I'm going to organize a 2-hour event. 2-hour event only for one day, because if you try to get people involved in things which are too heavy, the only thing you achieve is people, no one is going to turn up. So I'm going to organize a 2-hour event to speak with these Big Brother Watch people, to talk to the public about targeting. So that's all. And then what I try to do today, which I don't know if been putting people off or something, but I try to from the targeting and the victimization of people, I try to have a look at the larger picture, because it's all connected. It's all enslaving people through debt, and enslaving people by cutting public services, enslaving people by cutting their welfare checks and things, enslaving people by making them unemployed, and enslaving people by cutting their wages. Making people terrorized of speaking out, what is happening at the geopolitical level, the conflict with Russia, the control, the fact that the terror financial banking cartel is controlling everything in the West, you name it, they control it. Political establishment, big corporation, top corporation, asset management companies, which are actually more important than the bank, because asset management company, they own a lot of top world banks. So people talk about the bankers, the banks, but we have there are a few banking family which pull the string of everything. So it's quite correct to talk about banking, but you need to have a look at asset management companies, because you get I think a company called right, there are actually two of them. They're both controlled by the Rothschild. One is called Blackstone, and the other is called BlackRock. And basically, they call asset management company, and each one of these two companies, I think there's the 4 or 5 top asset management companies in the world. Just between them, they control around about everything. Now, so if you look at Blackstone and BlackRock, which people believe they're both entirely controlled by the Rothschild family, you will see that they manage and control most of the top bank, most of the top oil, most of the top pharma, most of the top world defense. So I think it's important we talk about this stuff, because it's just, we need. So I'll try, although which some people may find a bit strange, but to get a picture of all the different things going on, using debt to control the population, cutting services, cutting wages, cutting welfare, closing down fire station and hospital, and all the things, which is quite important in the actual context, because people like talk about the fact that there's a few organizations, a few pages, a few people may have been kicked out of various social networks. Yeah, and that may be bad enough, because for a lot of people actually, they activism group and individual, that's a bit of a like digital death. They were relying very much on this channel to make their voice heard, to organize events, to do things. They're no longer able to do that. So that is bad enough. That is bad enough because it's part of some sort of digital death, right? So that's. But I think we losing sight of the main thing going on at the moment, which is basically, in a nutshell, people getting terrorized or speaking, increasingly afraid or speaking out about anything. I see it happening with me, with myself, and I don't think, uh, I am a particularly timid kind of person, uh, so I getting very concerned now about what I'm saying on online, what kind of information I'm sharing in case they accuse me of sharing fake news or something like they do at the time. So I mean, I'm afraid of losing my social network, incurring some sort of digital death. But also, in certain cases, you may actually try to drag you to the courts. That there's been in this country, for instance, they're now taking away a lot of resources, I mean, from the police, which, I mean, they already since 2010, since we got this wretched, murderous Tory government, they cut 40,000 police jobs, right? In 8 years. And then they're surprised that, there's, we have been, since the beginning of the year, we have been having in London more murders than in New York. London is becoming the murder capital of the, on its way to becoming one of the murder capital of the world. We have all this knife crime, we have all these, acid attacks. So, yeah, so basically, what I'm trying to say, we need to look at things in context. We need to not just focusing just on what's happened to me as a target individual. We need to get some understanding of it, because there's many interesting and important things going on at the moment. You should just hide your head into sand and pretend nothing is happening. We have Brexit in this country. We have Donald Trump in the United States, and I'm not going to say anything partisan about Brexit or Donald Trump. I'm just saying is, we live in an era of great flux. A lot of the political paradigm are changing. I think there is a lot of political confusion. I think part of it is probably engineered deliberately by some parties. So it's more important to know that to look at the big picture, to try to understand. We have all this new event. We don't have a clue where they're coming from, but. In many ways, if you have a map, you know where you are, where you are going. I think people can start to build a map about what is going on in the world. All these geopolitical events we are witnessing a lot of a lot of flux, a lot of geopolitical events, and all. In a way, all these different events are apparently so different, so disparate, and the rest of it, they can be reconduced to some basic patterns. We have an money lending banking cartel, which is I think in the 17th, 18th centuries is being replaced into absolute monarchy. So you shouldn't think that when we got out of the absolutistic monarchy system of the 17th, 18th century, we got something called democracy, because democracy is just part of the new order we get after the 18th century. Not in the sense that we have democracy, but in the sense that the new order was based to a larger degree in manufacturing consent rather than so in new order. So democracy, we need to consider democracy not something which needs to be taken very seriously as a concept, but something which is part of the new order they try to establish after the 18th century, whereby instead of just killing people and beating them to death or burning them at the stake, they start brainwashing them into consenting to their machinations. So it's important to understand what is going on, and then we have the starting of the progressive movement, and of the progressive movement, and I think a lot of this I say progressive movement, just for want of deliberately try to avoid the other expression or the definition, but to be quite generical about it. But about this progressive movement, there is evidence that even going back to the 1648, Oliver Cromwell, and etc., what follows, the decapitation of Charles I, and there is evidence that there were quite huge meddling about this money lending cartel in this kind of event. So in a way, you have this progressive movement, which may have been had some merits in they were trying to do something good for humanity, but at the same time they were very early on co-opted and manipulated and controlled by what I call this money lending cartel. So to actually use and exploit and manipulate and this progressive movement for their own quite evil purposes. So I mean, so I myself, I consider myself, I don't want to deliberately don't want to use the expression left wing or right wing, but I consider myself, I support the universal value of tolerance, openness, and but at the same time, I acknowledge that since the birth of the ultra progressive movement started, in Europe, you can go back to the glorious revolution of 1960 and 1660, then 1648, Oliver Cromwell, etc., etc. The French Revolution, if people take care of read these history books and stuff, genuine history books, no, not just the brainwashing garbage we have been taught at school and stuff, or in universities. People take the trouble to find out what really happened with events, not just the official, which history, the official history, which is very much, germane to all the lies and nonsense we have been told by mainstream media anyway. So, actually, you have the relationship there whereby they say the history is already being written by the winners of wars, etc. But history is also being written by the people who are control society. So so you have this fake history about all the stuff being happening in the last few hundred years, and thus create a natural context for them to then feeding us all the lies, the mainstream media lies, disinformation and misinformation. So history, fake history and fake news that are very, very connected, because if you had some genuine information about what really happened in history, they won't be able to feed us all the nonsense they're feeding us with mainstream media. So in a way, there is a very, very a very tight connection between fake history and fake news, the one we are getting from mainstream media. So I think, I wanted to advertise a couple of events, but also I wanted to, in this age of great confusion, even we are getting at the moment some kind of ideological confusion that were not present just 10 years ago. So 10 years ago, it seemed that there's a lot of ideological ambiguity in many of the things happening at the moment. I think it's quite important to try to look at the general picture. The general picture is that, if you look at the 17th century, 18th century, the absolute monarchy were not replaced by, like we are being told, by democracy. The absolute monarchies were replaced by the dictatorship of the bankers, basically, I believe, which then proceed by starting to get control of the money supply, and then getting control of everything, the political establishment, parties, opposite parties, entertainment, media, news, big corporations, banking, financial sector, they control everything. So what we have at the moment is it's very interesting picture because these bankers, which are rather evil and paranoid, they filter power threatened from many different directions. Um, it does, for instance, this push they're making to increasing control the information we are able to access, and the platforming organization and people and silences people, which has been, at the end of the day, there's been as many. I don't think it's right to, there's been as many victim of this kind of policies on the right and on the left. So it's been an over the board effort to silence people, but it's not just to silence people, because I think is even the idea of silencing people is they want to scare people. I will go even further. They don't want to scare people for things, not just for the, to prevent them from saying certain things in the future, right? But I would go even further, say they, after collecting all our information with total abandonment for many years, they want to just to scare people even for things they have been saying in the past. Yeah, and now we get an increased number of countries which, to allow you in the country, they ask you to provide access, to your social network presence, the social network activities. So it's not just to silence people for things they may say in the future. They want to get people scared, scared and worried all the time. That's the way they get traumatized. 9/11, false flag, to traumatize people, false flag terrorism every few weeks. We have some instances of false flag terrorism in the United States, in Europe. Yeah? They want people. What is the best way to control people? To traumatize them, to keep them in a constant state of trauma. When they start to recover from their trauma, you create another traumatic event to reinforce the trauma, to keep controlling them. So people now, they're not just worried about what may happen to them at their job if they speak out in the future. They start getting worried. All the things I've been saying on my social network in the past. Fear is the key to control people. Fear and trauma, right? And then people worried about repaying their debt, which they will, on the face of it, they will never be able to anyway, because we have, you have into estimate, for instance, there are 20 trillion of public debt, 20 trillion of household debt. So I don't know how much that worth for every person in the country, but I mean, people will never be able to repay that. So but worried about their debt, worried about worried about their welfare, worried about their job, worried about anything may do or say may lose them their job. So I just wanted to have a look at the general picture, where it is what they call the terror financial banking cartel is basically they aiming at. They're aiming at enslaving everybody. So, fear for what we may have said on social networks, not just in the future, but in the past. What get you worried, get you traumatized with false flag terrorism, get you traumatized with scare story all the time. We get all these scare, most of what mainstream media feed us is scare story about horrible crime being committed, about how with Brexit, everything is going to collapse. So yes, I wanted to try to move into the bigger picture, because it's a lot of change at the moment. There's a lot of big fight going on for the future of humanity, or rather between people with, they may cause the destruction of humanity. People will try to preserve it. And every day I come across unbelievable story, like, people being criminalized, for people being killed for, saying the wrong thing to a police officer in the United States, people being criminalized for feeding the homeless, homeless people being criminalized for being homeless. So it's Orwellian, totally Orwellian horror story unfolding on both sides of the Atlantic. I'm sure there is a similar, if not worse, horrific thing going on in China. A similar thing going on in many developing countries, possibly even worse. So I mean, so I try to. There's many things happening. I try at least to touch on some of what I consider to be the main thing. Uh, yeah. So basically, there is a word in all this narrative. There was a word which is quite central. That is enslavement. Enslavement through indebtment, but mainly enslavement to uh, trauma and fear. So what happened now that increasingly landlord, employer, a custom officer want to look at your past social network history, what all this worried sick about people worried sick about the things that may have been written in the past. False flag terrorism, we are supposed to feel all the time threatened by false flag terrorism. I mean, because most of these state sponsored anyway. So that's why I call it false flag terrorism. So and whatever you may think of climate change, I don't want to tell you what I think of climate change, if it's real or not. Mainly because I myself don't know, but it's very convenient because if you tell people you have a lot of intractable problem, which even if you were to switch off all the car and stop all the car, all the plane from flying, things are still going to get worse. A problem cannot be solved. So I tell you, we have many of them all the time. Mainstream media telling us all the horrible problem we are facing, and most of them are actually problems which can be solved. So the key is enslavement. If you want to look even deeper into enslavement, the key is keeping people constantly worried about something, constantly in a state of perpetual trauma. 9/11. Yeah, and then they passed the Patriot Act, which is basically, during the night. So no one in the Congress had any chance to read the text, which is basically the base for the creation of a soft police state. So the key, I couldn't help myself in trying to have a look at what is happening all over the world with constant changes, the Yellow Vest movement in France, which now is spreading to other European countries. But, they managed to suppress the Occupy movement quite easily in the past. So we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what the future has in store for us. But I couldn't tell myself by saying a few words about some very important things, not just all kinds of nonsense, small things, about just some basic fact about the time we live in and what is going on in terms of change and flux. And I suppose the international banking cartel effort to keep control of the people in the West, becoming increasingly restless, and then you have a restlessness which is very difficult to control, because when it's born out of not having enough food to put on your table, then you can say, oh, don't worry, everything is fine, but oh yeah, I know slightly differently. So we don't know, but I felt that it's I need to have a look at all these enslavement, trauma, all the stuff these criminals are trying to do to our planet and to humanity. So that's all for now. I hope very much that people tomorrow are going to, at least there is going to be a number of people there, so we can start maybe discussing people different experiences, find a common ground to understand each other, to understand that we're all victimized. At the end of the day, we're all being victimized by the same people in the same way. If you if you get rid of what may be apparent differences and differences in emphasis and stuff, you can find out the same thing being perpetrated by the same criminal at the end of the day. So also to let people know about this future Big Brother Watch protest, which as soon as I know the location, I'm going to invite people to a Facebook event about that. And then I felt I had to talk about the general situation because, you know, we live in, may you live in interesting time, allegedly the Chinese used to say as a curse or something. So we live in very happening time, in very interesting time, in very dangerous time. And I felt I had to, you know, set out a few ideas about what is going on from my point of view. You may agree, you may disagree, and I think that's all for today. I hope to see you, a lot of you, tomorrow. One view. Yeah, that's the other one. No, that's the other one. The one with lock. I hope this one isn't going to be locked. I very much hope so. Right. Okay.